Welcome to the Hiring Table, your weekly dose of hiring insights, airing Fridays at 12 p.m. Pacific.
This morning we got Tom Spradling with us, 25 years experience, VP of Finance, CFO, working for small to mid-sized companies here in the Central Valley. Industries are third-party administrator, fruit packaging company, construction, new home builds, and currently at Cotman Technology.
Correct.
What does Kotman do?
Cotman is a managed service provider in the IT space, mostly local, but they've also got an operation in Michigan as well. Locally run, fantastic group of people. The culture there is amazing. If you need any IT needs, they are the ones in town to go to.
I think you recently started that position, so it'll take some time to get in and used to things. Why did you choose accounting?
For spite, Lorenzo. I'll just start by saying what I mean by that is 49 years ago, I was called into the counselor's office in high school, and he said, "What do you want to be?" I said, "I have no idea what I want to be. I'm 17 years old. I have no clue." "You got to give me an answer." He would not let me leave his office until I gave him an answer. And I said, "Okay, I think I want to be a pilot." And he said, "Your math skills are nowhere near where they need to be. You can't be a pilot. You need to be something else." So I ended up being an accountant with those lousy math skills. That's why I got into accounting.
Talk to me a little bit about your career journey, best job you've ever had, and why?
Best job I've ever had is that of father or dad. I have been the provider of the family forever, Lorenzo, and that's quite a responsibility. It's something I never took lightly, and I've had gainful employment my whole life. Very lucky to say that. Many people can't. But I would say that it's hard to pick a favorite job. I did a stint where during the real lean times of 2008 to 2012, I commuted from Fresno to the Philadelphia area, and it was a 4-year grind, but I loved the work there. The people were fantastic. The job was great. It was a large third-party administrator. And I still have connections with many of the people, and this was back in 2012. I loved it, loved going. That was the job. Unfortunately, it was 2,500 miles away from my family.
Lots of commuting, lots of sacrifice. In hindsight, did that sacrifice pay off for you?
Absolutely. I'm a man of faith. My wife and I looked at it as I was being put in exile. And I was in exile for 4 years, but the rewards that came from that are just unbelievable.
Does it have any direct correlation to career trajectory, upward mobility?
I would say every step along the way has been a step towards where I was going. I don't think I ever took a step backward where I said, this is not where I want to be, this is not helping. I took some bit of knowledge from every position I've ever held and just apply it on a daily basis. I would go back to what I alluded to earlier and seeing a need and filling a need. And it was a decision to go back to school. Even though I was probably early 30s at that point, I knew that I couldn't do this on my own. Back then, there was no such thing as ChatGPT, so you had to learn from books. I made a decision, look, I'm going to go back to school. I did a couple of semesters just taking accounting courses. At that point, again, I was provider and father as well. I could not take the time off needed to go for a full CPA, but I did get the basics of accounting. And that was actually the advice of a good, solid accountant. I said, look, I see great accountants every day that don't have CPA certificates. I feel like if the School of Hard Knocks gave CPAs, I've earned it. But unfortunately, they don't. So I've just learned on my way. I learned in the fire.
One thing I want to talk about is employee retention. What has been the issues with retention? If you've got a good retention rate you're proud of, anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think the most important thing to keep good employees is they need to just know specifically what their job entails. Very clear set of objectives, a very clear set of duties, and then the culture as well. Treat everyone like a human being. No one is a servant except yourself. I've always looked at it as an accountant, as a position of servanthood. And you can't be afraid to assign things and understand as well, they've got a day job to do. So you've got to be respectful of that. You don't want to be changing them every 3 or 4 years. And to your point, if you don't put the time in up front, you're not going to get the bang at the end. There's a lot of work to make sure that they are all set up to be able to do just what they've been shown.
Treasury, cash management, best practices, tips, any advice you have for people that are maybe newer to it?
Near and dear to my heart. That's day one. The first thing I look at is coming in and laying out different versions of cash management and reporting to ownership to make sure that we are covered. You don't want to be the guy that goes to the owner and says, hey, we're out of money. We can't make our payroll this week. And the way you avoid those conversations is by planning and looking forward and making sure you've got the cash available. I typically work with 2 different models, strictly just for the cash. One is a 1-week look. What's going to happen every day this this week? What receipts can I reasonably expect? What do I know is going out the door expense-wise? What are my bank balances starting? What are my bank balances ending? And then that'll feed to the next week, and we start all over again. The other one is a much longer look, maybe 7 to 14 weeks out, and looking at these things all tying together. I'm expecting this revenue. I know these expenses are coming. I've got a bogey here that I've got to watch out for, a big balloon payment, that sort of thing, and plan around it that way. And worst case scenario, you're not going to the owner and saying, we're going to have a problem on Friday. You're going to the owner and say, hey, I'm seeing a blip that's about 8 weeks out. We need to solve for that blip right now.
Advice to the individuals that graduated Fresno State in accounting, any advice that you have for them?
That's the backbone of many companies, is the new graduate. And really the best advice I can give a new graduate, school smarts are way different than street smarts. You've got to have an open mind and you've got to learn, and there is a lot to learn. Even newly minted CPAs, it's great. You've proven that you can memorize and you know the rules. That's fantastic. Now, let's take a look at the real life of it. It's not as clean as the book, believe me. There's a lot of messy transactions that you've got to really understand. So I would say for those starting out, learn, be a sponge, and try and find a mentor that is not afraid to share.
I think mentorship is critical. Do you have a mentor in your career that you've had that you remember forever and ever?
I'm going to go back to school, and it was a challenge that I had in college. First day of school, it was an English class, and he said, you know, for those of you that don't know my reputation, I'm a bastard. And everyone just kind of went, oh my gosh, this guy's going to be tough. But I was realistic. I knew that this guy was the toughest guy in the program. I didn't have any preconceived notion that I could get an A in his class. And to point out the strictness of this guy, his son went to West Point. So bright, bright, bright. The first letter that he wrote home, it said that Dad corrected it and sent it back to him. That's the level that we're talking about. So you made one punctuation error and you would get an F on the book. It would give you 2 grades, punctuation and content. And almost everyone started with an F for the mechanics of it. And then how well you did on the composition part of it is how you did. I made it up my mind, I'm going to get a B in this guy's class. And I ended up having a fantastic relationship with this guy. And for the final exam, he handed it to me. He said, if you get an A on this, you'll get a B in my class. And I thought, that is not fair to put that kind of pressure on me right now. I ran into him in the parking lot a few days later, and he just shook his head and he said, you know, I didn't realize I was putting that much pressure on you, but you're going to get your B. But sometimes it's the most stern people that once you can crack that facade, they've got something to give. And I'm just very thankful that I was able to not panic and not say, I'm not up to this task. Quite the opposite. I'm up to this task, and I'm going to show everybody.
Everybody has somebody like that in their early career. What about later in your career? Do you have anybody that made an impact?
Really, it's going to be the principals that I worked with, the business owners. I learned something from each of them. And some of them, it was lessons that I said, I will never do that in a career to anybody. Those are easy, Lorenzo. It's just so against who I am that it's like, I would never treat anyone like that. The ones that were tough for me is the ones where I said, that was just exceptional. How do I do that? Because that's not my comfort zone. How is it that you can deliver that message, which was a hard message, so easily and make me feel good about it? And it's the principals that I've worked with that had the ability to communicate and deliver that I would say that's what really helped me along the way. Trying to emulate the best, and I fall way short of that, but trying to emulate the best and just sticking with my principles, saying, I would never do that.
It's almost like effective leadership is not what you say, but it's how you say it. Because at the end of the day, you still got to get results. You still got to move business along, and you got to make tough decisions. But how you say it to people, how you come across is very powerful.
It is.
It's powerful.
100%. And as long as you show empathy and compassion and understanding and don't just jump right to the punchline, get a lot of equity built.
Have you seen a good filter of a person and professional that's really helped to retain employees and created a better work culture?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I loved the way that he said this in the interview, and I thought immediately, this is the place I want to be. I'm going to give this a try. And what it was is the owner said, when I stopped worrying about my profit and started worrying about my employees, my profits grew. And I've worked for the complete opposite end of that spectrum as well, which was, it's about me and nobody else. And the open door policy that he bragged about, his door was open when someone was going in or going out. And that's not how you develop morale. When you're managing by fear, it's not going to work.
It's not sustainable.
Definitely not. You lose a lot of good people.
Well, Tom, thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Hiring Table. Next week, we host the CEO of Fresno County Farm Bureau, Ryan Jacobson. We talk about water policy, hiring strategies, and more.